Because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides. By tonight, ordering investigations into American citizens. That's why members of his party,
Why are you so upset he's running the executive branch?
Kate Baldwin stepped in for Abby Phillip and led a charged discussion with Miles Teller, Betsy McCoy, Jamal Simmons, Stacey Schneider, and a noticeably smug Scott Jennings. The panel clashed over Marjorie Taylor Greene and a number of other Republicans who have recently started speaking out against Donald Trump for their own reasons, a shift that Scott Jennings clearly had a hard time accepting. We're about to break down this intense back and forth from Abby Phillip's show with Kate Baldwin at the helm, and I'll be adding my own perspective as we go, so let's jump into it together.
All right, so a lot has happened tonight. Buckle up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is learning what it feels like to be on Trump's bad side. She has been one of the most vocal Republicans calling for the full release of the Justice Department's investigative files on Jeffrey Epstein. And now President Trump tonight is unendorsing. He is withdrawing his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene and writing on Truth Social that all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain. And then he added that I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. There was a lot there. So you can go and then talk about a lot. Then MTG fired back with screenshots of text messages that she claims that Trump is lying and that she did not call him. Also saying that it is astonishing, really, how hard he is fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out. She argued that she has been one of Trump's strongest supporters, but that she doesn't, quote, worship or serve Donald Trump. On top of unendorsing, he actually said that he would support anyone who would be primarying her in the upcoming election. Who wants to take this one on?
Well, I can tell you that is not unusual in politics. Political romances are often short-lived. And she has been critical of him not only about the Epstein files, but about his involvement in foreign affairs, and I don't mean with women. I mean in various parts of the world.
You said it, no.
Just to clear the table on that one. And so it's not surprising that they have had a breakup of sorts after all. He didn't give her a ring. He just supported her for a little while.
Listen, this fire is spreading. I mean, right, it started off talking about Epstein in the beginning. Then during the shutdown, she was one of the few Republicans that correctly identified Donald Trump's unwillingness to deal with the ACA subsidies and lower healthcare costs for Americans as being one of the reasons why the shutdown occurred.
Yeah, she was very outspoken about that.
Now she's talking about foreign policy. This is not going away. Whatever is going on between them seems to only be heating up, and I think the rest of us should get the popcorn.
I think
here for it.
And a war with words, sorry, Scott, a war with words with Donald Trump is such a risky business that I cannot believe she has the bravery to engage in it, because even if she was right, she's still going to lose.
Is there an example of anyone beating Donald Trump at this game?
Never. This is his game, and he's great at it. And she's barking up a tree that she's going to fall on her really hard.
You know, it's interesting. He has some people who profess to be strong supporters who do oppose him more often than the people that you might not think are his strongest supporters. She's one of them. Thomas Massie in Kentucky is another one. Rand Paul, my home state senator, he takes on Trump, although they profess to be Trump supporters. In this case, I think he had the order out of order. I trace all this back to his decision, the righteous decision to strike Iran. She was against it. So were some of the people who occupy that wing of the party. He defied them. And since that time, they all seem to be stridently picking at him on this issue or that. And then, of course, everybody knows in Washington, Miles, you know, the fastest way to get in front of a television camera if you're a Republican is to come out and crap on Donald Trump. And so that is what she is doing.
But, you know, Scott,
that is what she is doing because
I trace it back further than that, Scott.
Over these issues, and that's what happened.
Scott, I trace it further back than that. I trace it back to 10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast. Because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides. By tonight, ordering investigations into American citizens. That's why members of his party,
Why are you so upset he's running the executive branch?
For the same reasons you predicted he shouldn't. For the same reasons, Scott, you said he violated his oath and he should never be back in that office.
I happily
That's
voted
why
for him.
I'm upset for the man being in the Oval Office.
I happily voted for him 3 times.
I know that.
The alternative was terrible.
And a lot of your friends were shocked.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends would have been shocked at you trying to subvert the elected president of the United States, which you did.
Well, I proudly did. I proudly
Some
said
mid-level
to the
staffer
country
substituting his
who
judgment
this
for the
man
elected
was.
president of the United States.
Well,
Good
Scott,
luck,
I would have
brother.
loved to have seen you stand up to it.
Good luck.
I really enjoy watching the back and forth between Miles Taylor and Scott Jennings, because Miles doesn't let Scott's usual smug attitude slide, and the way Scott routinely defends Donald Trump always comes across as the same loyal routine he does every night on Abby Phillips' show. Scott tries to throw little jabs at Miles with that smirk and grin he's known for, but Miles isn't having it and instead keeps calling out what he sees as Trump's authoritarian behavior, and according to Miles, Scott himself once said something similar about Trump years ago, which Scott doesn't seem eager to deny. It's the kind of thing we've seen from a lot of Republicans who strongly criticized Trump in the past but now back him without hesitation, similar to how Trump's current vice president, J.D. Vance, once used harsh comparisons against Trump but now fully supports him. The same pattern shows up with Scott Jennings and others who used to warn people about Trump but now defend him nonstop as if they've forgotten everything they said before he became president. And while I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has her own extreme views and conspiracy-leaning opinions, I'll give her this much credit: at least she's willing to challenge Trump on issues like the ACA and foreign conflicts, even if some people say she's only doing it for re-election, which is basically what every politician is trying to do anyway. Scott Jennings never takes that kind of stand, never challenges Trump on anything, while Greene at least shows a bit of courage by confronting him, even though, as Stacey Schneider said, trying to fight Trump with words is almost impossible to win. Still, Greene is doing it, which in that sense makes her look far more independent than Scott, who spends his time echoing MAGA talking points and defending Trump on Abby Phillips' show night after night.
Is it the sign of a changing tide? Is it the sign, or is it a singular one back and forth between one Republican who is getting into a fight with Donald Trump? Or do you think there is a possibility that it is the beginnings of Republicans seeing past the Donald Trump era?
The short answer is that we don't know.
Because you've got like Thomas Massey saying exactly that. Like, your vote on this discharge petition is going to outlast Donald Trump's time here. So you need to consider that when you make your decision.
But if we keep paying attention, what we see is that last week, the president got his clock clean in an election. All the Republicans got their clock clean in an election. This week, we see what's happening with the Epstein files. So next week, we're going to see them take a vote. And if we see a bunch of Republicans defect on the Epstein files, I think what we're seeing is the real testing of the waters to find out whether or not you can oppose Donald Trump and still get elected. When we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the one thing we haven't talked about yet is her fundraising prowess. And according to sources, she is the most popular fundraiser in the Republican Party other than Donald Trump.
She's
If that's the case, they're going to divide up.
This prediction about no one's going to care about this.
I was asking it a question. I wasn't predicting it.
No, you said people were somebody said that this was going to outlive.
Tom Massey.
And the prediction that this was going to outlive.
Mm-hmm.
I totally disagree with that. I think right now more people are worried about whether they can watch ESPN on YouTube TV tomorrow than they care about this. And that's certainly going to be true in 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from today.
Hold on,
but what they do care about, they
did not get their clocks cleaned last week.
They do care about the fact that the president is sort of breaking everything. Right? They see a hole in the White House right now. I was in Detroit last weekend for an event, and it was the number one thing people came up to me at the scholarship dinner to ask about. Is it okay for the president to tear down the White House without anybody's permission?
That was the number one thing?
That was the number one thing that people brought up unprovoked.
Ridiculous.
To find out about.
I keep hearing this over and over again. It's like, no one cares about this because they only care about that.
You know what they care about? They can't buy a house.
That they can't afford. They care about affordability.
Unaffordable, and that food costs too much. Yeah. But they don't care about the White House. The fact is, a president who can't model the White House.
Many people care about the White House.
That's ridiculous.
Every visitor.
Many Americans care about the White House. You don't care about the White House.
Can't remodel a room in the White House.
He remodeled it. He tore it down. He tore down
tomato tomato.
In the middle of a
I couldn't
government
tear down my
shutdown.
garage without getting a permit from the city.
And that's all
But let me ask you this.
And he's tearing down a ballroom.
I think this often when people say, you're all talking about this, but here's the focus should really be this. People hold multiple thoughts and focuses in their heads at the same time. Like, people can care about multiple things. They can care about not being able to buy a new home. They can care about the skyrocketing cost of food, which we will talk about shortly. And they can care about, I don't know, anything else. Stacey Plackett getting text messages from Jeffrey Epstein, if you want to take it from Scott's side. Like, you can hold all of these thoughts. I always think it's just someone trying to say to me, I don't want to answer your question by just trying to deflect that way. I find it a deflection when people say, don't focus on this. You need to focus. Everyone only cares about this one issue.
Well, I mean, if you're analyzing it from the perspective of like political consultant speak, like what do voters care about? How do we get voters to move a certain direction? Next year, the way you'll get voters to move would be on cost of living, healthcare. I mean, things that actually motivate their lives. They may have some interest in this, some passing interest in it, but motivation to vote? I mean, everybody knows what the bread and butter issues are. This won't be one of them, but the ones that will be relevant are quite obvious.
I disagree with Scott fervently on Donald Trump, and I could not agree with him more on that point. Voters aren't going to care about this next year. For better or for worse, they are going to care about things like affordability. Everyone in politics is going to be running that direction in the lead up to the election.
The people that do care about it, though, and consistently get lost in it, are the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who then just wrote a letter to members of Congress saying, think about if this was you. And think about if this was your child when you're taking this vote next week.
Do you think
I am saying that because...
Do you think the victims would agree with Donald Trump asking the Department of Justice to look into people that may have been involved in this and got away with it?
I will
it would have been nice if he did it when he got into office.
I know they can speak for themselves. I do know that Democrat, even Ro Khanna, said, everyone, investigate it.
Well, there seems to be a lot of anger about Donald Trump saying, well, maybe these people need to be looked into. Why?
I think where the interest is if these people are looked into, a member of Congress actually said it today, we don't have time to run it, but if these people are looked into, does that mean that Donald Trump can be looked into as well?
Is there a shred of evidence he ever did anything untoward?
Is there a shred of evidence?
No. About anybody else? Is there a shred of evidence? No. All right, same answer for the other people.
Stand by, my friend.
Stacey,
thank you so much.
Scott Jennings' reaction to the Epstein topic felt like the perfect example, at least to me, of that familiar MAGA-style defense where he quickly points at everyone else while insisting his own side is completely clean, even though nobody actually knows the full truth about what Trump, Clinton, or any of the others may or may not have done. Almost everyone I see on the left says the same thing: release everything, no matter who it exposes, because if someone is guilty, they should answer for it. But people like Scott Jennings always respond with this predictable line that their preferred figure is totally innocent while demanding investigations into everyone else, and they won't even entertain the chance that Trump could have been involved in anything, which is wild to me considering how certain they act about opinions that aren't confirmed facts. You see it on the show all the time, the way Scott and other MAGA-leaning guests talk as if their assumptions are undeniable truths. Just like when Stacey Schneider confidently claimed Republicans didn't get wiped out, which was simply her interpretation, or when Scott insisted that voters only care about certain issues. The reality is that the next election will probably come down to the cost of living and the overall economy, and if things keep trending the way they are, that's not shaping up well for Trump politically, no matter how Scott tries to spin it every night. I'd really like to know what you think. Do you side with Scott Jennings and what he said during this panel with Kate Baldwin, or do you agree more with people like Miles Taylor pushing back on him? Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.